What we've really come to understand is it's the hand action that actually drives.
If you have good hands, you know what to do with your hands. So much works back into the body, and the golfer they're empowered when they know how to use their hands properly.
So welcome, everyone.
Hey, everybody. Hey, welcome.
Hello. Hi, from down under.
Hello from sunny Arizona. That's
good. It's sunny up there. That's super.
It's gorgeous. You know, for those, let's see, I'll speak to both people. The metric system, right? You got what is it, about 22, 23 degrees Celsius. And then the others, it's probably a beautiful 75 in Arizona. So for those of you freezing your tail off, I am sincerely sorry, but you can come visit. We'd love to have you in Arizona. I know Peter would love to see where he's at. It looks gorgeous there.
Yeah, it's about the same temperature as we got there. And it's our summertime, but this is a nice golfing day today.
Beautiful. And I hope those of you watching might have a cocktail in hand. This is a margarita. Lovely, delicious.
Must be the end of your day.
It is the end of my day, my friend. It's it's 6 o'clock here, so it's margarita time.
Okay. Well, we're lunchtime here, so it's golf's on the menu.
There you go.
So we're in Chris's hands. So when everyone's arrived, we'll it's over to Chris Beckett.
Okay, I think everyone's arrived, and I'd like to welcome everyone from around the world to this fantastic webinar with Martin and Peter. And it's all about the simple truths of the golf swing. It's a continuing series on what we did last month. And just run you through a few slides here. And basically it's separating cause and from the effects in an orthodox golf swing, what causes what to happen. What we did in webinar number 1, we learned that the hands are the source of motion of the golf swing, for coordination and less body strain, why push is more important than pull when it comes to building a golf swing that delivers better control, power, and consistency. We also learned that golf is a 2-target game, and that push and the direction of the push is the cause of the lag and the late hit. So moving on to this webinar, so truth number 5, where we're looking at understanding the impact zone that makes the ball fly up into the air. So take it away, gents.
Pretty important. Peter, why don't you start us off, pal?
Right. Well, impact, it's the moment of truth, they say, when the golf club hits that golf ball. To make the ball, number 1, go up in the air, it's important to realize that it's...
Sorry, Peter, your camera's shifted around, so you just need to...
Oh, right, the wind blew it.
Turned around. I think the wind has blown it.
There wasn't much.
There we go.
Beautiful, beautiful. Okay.
In the middle.
Good.
Okay, so back to it. So impact, so that moment of truth when the club head hits the ball, because the golf swing is circular motion, the club's not on the ground all the way, it's coming up in an arc, and as it comes down, if it makes contact with the ball below the center, below the equator, while it goes down, the ball will spin up the club face, providing as the club head comes down, the club shaft leans forward as it makes contact versus leaning back. If it leans back, what happens is you'll either scoop the ball, get under it with no compression, or more likely you'll top it. And that's why a lot of beginning golfers, and not just beginners, but a lot of people hit thin shots and they get what we call a top shot, or they hit behind the ball because the club comes through this way and it catches it with a topping action. So at the moment of impact, and Martin's designed a club to actually promote this. We're going to get him to talk about it because that's his real forte, is to get students to build that impact zone so that when you hit the golf ball, instead of breaking down, you're encouraged to come in and lean forward the shaft. And that's where the educated hands bringing the club on the right path will promote that downward blow, number 1, and the forward lean of the shaft through impact. So it's the hands that cause this lean, educating the hands so that you're pushing thumbs down. And as you come through the golf ball, it's so important, simultaneously as the thumbs go down, the last three fingers of that lead hand curl or push the club into line and square the club face up, so that when you hit this golf ball, you're hitting it with a downward blow. And the more you go down, the more the ball climbs up that club face. It leaves on the loft plus the backspin. When you're going this way through the ball, you get much more backspin and compression. And so it goes further, flies and stays in the air, and basically you can enjoy the hit much more. So,
jumping on that bandwagon there. So this is the crazy clubs that I designed. So if I hold those up so you can see them, you can see a traditional club, the one with the dots on it. That's so my launch monitor can speak to it. But you can see how there's so much of the sole or that face removed. And why I did that, because I wanted students to understand that golf is not a scooping motion. Golf is a motion where if you understand the physics of a strike, at the moment of touch, and there's a neat product you saw that, Peter, that strike board, the divot board.
Yes.
That
I want 100 of those, please.
You know it, because if people understand that if they grip it, if they take the time to grip the golf club properly, so many good things happen. Because once you understand the push, and push is a pretty simple thing, people. So many people pull. They pull into a backswing. They pull into a fall through. But if you have a gentle push and you understand how to go thumbs down, the thumbs down part leans the shaft for you. If you lean the shaft, now you've got a stronger face. That stronger face takes your club speed and delivers more punch into the golf ball. And so when you have those conditions of functional grip and you understand how to go thumbs down and how to go with your hands through a golf ball, you get those elements that provide the most punch for your swing speed. And that's what we're looking for. We're not looking for a scooping, picking motion. We're looking for a long push motion that has a lot of structure through the strike. And it's amazing when I see the light bulb go on with a student, and I wish I could say it happens really quickly, some more than others, some immediately, some it might take a couple of lessons. But the fact is, Peter showed me something a long time ago about impact. He stood there and he pushed the club toward me and I pushed the club back at him. And then in walking, he walked around and I pushed, and I was able to sustain that push and that radius. And if you can do that with a functional grip through a strike, you can't help but compress the golf ball. And compression's the drug of golf. I'm convinced. I mean, scoring great's nice, but if you score and you struggle to score because you're helter-skelter all over the golf course, that's a little unnerving. When you compress the golf ball most of the day and it goes sort of where you want it to, that's what makes golf like the amazing drug people love.
Yes, compression's a lot better than depression, isn't it, Martin?
Oh, trust me. And I think a lot of golfers play golf. They have fun despite the depression.
Yeah. Well, it really is. It's the educated hand and that direction of hit, making sure that you're not trying to go down the line and scoop it up, but hit down and out into the golf ball. And that hand action causes the arms and the body to work. And I think a lot of golfers, if they get that correct direction of hit and the correct hand action, the hips really are cleared. So they've got that room to extend down and out through the ball. I think that's really key too.
Absolutely. So, just to go back for folks, I mean, I think most people, wouldn't you agree, Peter, that they get to the top and they pull rather than push? And this is the sickness I see in the driving range. I see a pull in the backswing that gets people too retracted. Their arms are not structured. And then I see a lot of a pull in an attempt to get the club inside, which really gets the club too steep. So in a backswing, if we have this sense of width and push, we have this sense of going thumbs down through the strike, now you're going to have the club in its best opportunity to hit the, a compressed forward-leaning shaft, touch point or divot at and after the golf ball.
Beautiful. Now it's a great start, a great place to start building your golf swing, is building it from the impact zone and then working backwards or outwards.
Oh, I couldn't agree more. I couldn't agree more. It was interesting today. My son plays hockey, and all winter. It's winter. It's in Phoenix, but it's 75 degrees today. So he plays hockey all winter. Well, he was inspired to want to play golf yesterday, watching the Riviera, watching Tony Finau. We played a few holes. He hit it great. We played again today. He hit it not as good. Interesting, right? The second day after not playing. And it was kind of fun to watch him realize that as he hit some shots, some of them were a little picky. Then he quickly realized, how to get his push and how to have that sense of letting the body follow those educated hands, thumbs down, rather than the sense of something that isn't a push. This is clearly not a push flapping left and right. A push is an event where arms kind of get into that follow through condition. And he picked that back up and he started to hit some really nice shots.
Fantastic. Now, I think we've given a pretty good opportunity for people to go out and test that impact zone. Are there any other important truths that people need to apply?
So we've got the golf. Truth number 6 is the golf swing is a swing and a hit, a combination of both. So why the start of the backswing needs to be handle first and club head last.
Okay. Well, I love a lot of your teaching aids, Martin, but this is another one I love. This is designed by a former caddy on the PGA Tour. It's called the Orange Whip. And it really highlights what a swing and a hit really is. And to me, golf is a combination. It's not either a swing or a hit. You get the best result long term and for a lifetime if you combine a swinging motion, especially in the backswing. So if I start this and I try to pull it away, there's no swing. But if I push on the handle, the club effortlessly, or the orange ball effortlessly slings back. And that back sling or swinging motion is really at the key of getting your golf swing on path and in the right sequence. Golf is yes, sir.
So Peter, today is interesting. So I was coaching a fellow this morning, first lesson of the day, 8 a.m. Very fit 62-year-old doctor. He hit a few dry. He came out. I said, what would you like to work on? He said, distance. I said, okay, great. So that's a loaded question. I didn't know if he might have been fast and he was at the top of his speed, but he wasn't even close to the top of his speed. So here's a guy, he stood roughly 6 foot tall. He had a nice firm handshake. He was in good shape. Driver swing speed, okay? Driver swing speed, 68 miles an hour. And I'm like, I thought he was kidding me for a second. And here's the beauty of it. Jim Hackenberg is a dear buddy of mine. That's who invented the Orange Whip. I had one of the first 5 Orange Whips ever. It's one of my favorites. We use it at the studio all the time. So the lesson I gave him to increase his club head speed 15 miles an hour in 1 hour, 15 miles an hour, and it's going to go up from there, was simply handle first, club head last. Handle first, club head last, rather than his motion, which was a standing in cement, lifting his arms up without any sort of back, and I call it a sling, S-L-I-N-G. I want, a handle first, club head last situation creates that almost this reverse lagging condition that accelerates a golf club up to the top, that gets the body in this nice stretch cycle that allows it to respond to develop speed. So, I should have got him an Orange Whip to feel that. I didn't, but basically the lesson's exactly what you're saying.
I reckon when you give him the Orange Whip next lesson, he's going to add another 15 miles per hour.
Well, I saw online, he booked another lesson, and guess what? It'll be a part of his teaching repertoire, and I'll make him buy one because I sell them in my studio.
Look, I'm going to have to do that too, but this is the only one I've got. But this one was given to me by Jim Hackenberg. So
there you go.
So it was lovely to meet him, and I got his story on. It's in our Master Coaching Academy. His story. But bottom line is, it is a swing and a hit. It's not a swing or a hit. I know there's a lot of stuff out there about, are you a swinger or a hitter? Well, if you're going to last in this game, you want to get the club swinging and use the swinging power rather than have to rely on muscles and extra athletic ability. So the swing cannot start by pulling the club away or steering it away, whether it's in the backswing or the downswing. You can't start the swing by trying to move it away with your shoulders, your arms. It really needs, ideally, to be a slinging motion. So when I've got a slinging motion, I haven't got a coin on me at the moment, but if I was to put a coin back here about 8 to 12 inches back of the ball, when I have a slinging motion, I effortlessly hit that coin, so I have a nice wide arc. If you have an attempt where you're actually trying to move it away with your muscles, and whether you're moving away with your shoulder or your arm, you don't ever want to transfer weight to do it. You want to turn in a barrel. But if I push handle first, that club just stays effortlessly low. And what you said, Martin, it becomes it's a sling. And that is really an effortless way to get that wind up. So with a little bit more push, you've got yourself a fuller backswing. And that's the swinging part. Now, I'm going to not hit a normal golf ball. I'm going to hit a rubberized one here that won't go so far. But if I go into a swinging motion going back, you can't just try to make a swing down. You've got to actually decide, make a decision. You're going to make that club head hit the ball, and it's that downward direction of intention and force that's going to compress the ball. So in the definition of the word hit in the dictionary, one of the definitions is to strike by throwing. So we use that in our program. If you're going to hit the ball, you have to strike the ball by throwing the club head at the ball. So I'm just going to do that here.
Lovely swing. Beautiful swing.
I hit it straight over didn't get much height because I couldn't compress that rubberized ball. But
don't worry, Peter, your neighbor collects those for you and we'll bring those back.
Yeah, well, that one hit the trees, thank goodness.
Just to add that too, it's so amazing how what develops as soon as somebody understands that the backswing is this event where it's handle first, club head last. So many good things happen. The face doesn't roll prematurely open. The arc stays nice and wide because a lot of people that roll the club, everybody wants to hit a draw, so they whip it inside. But this sensation of handle first, club head last, when you watch me, you're seeing an exaggerated look because I'm doing it really slowly. And this motion of handle first, club head last gets everything organized and gets you in a place where the club helps you develop your swing speed. I think George Knudsen he was my mentor, a famous Canadian fella and beautiful guy. And he would say things that sort of made sense to me, but I think Peter has done a very nice job of making it bite-sized and task-oriented, such that if you follow along step by step, most everybody can do this. And the only folks that have a hard time doing it are what I call the earth flat people. If you really think the earth is flat, that's fine. And it's been flat for a lot longer than we've known it to be round. But once you start to realize that this golf swing is a motion inspired by, having organized hands and having the handle move first so the club head can sling to the top, now your body's in a position to really hit the golf ball.
Yeah, definitely. You got permission to enjoy the hit, we say. So you're not trying. Yes. You don't need to swing all the way. You got the opportunity to just watch that ball and hit that ball. So I've got a chair in the road here, so this soft ball won't go so far from this angle. But you'll see the back slinging motion, and then the down throwing motion, how it gives you that extension.
Beautiful.
Luckily, it
Beautiful.
missed me.
No, absolutely. Absolutely. So, you know, I think going on to there we go, going on to truth number 7. You know, and this is critical, right? Solid contact, being senior to club head speed. And, you know, let me start off on this one, Peter. I mean,
It's yours.
People come to me all the time, and everybody wants to hit it farther. There's no question about it. And today I had 2 lovely couples. They were senior. And what I did was I took some foot powder, some white spray, and sprayed their driver. And I just said to them, hey, here's your basic speed. One of the ladies was fairly fast. The other lady was a little slower. Two of the gentlemen were reasonable in the upper 80s, and they were close to 80. Shockingly, the 62-year-old who was in good shape early before that lesson was the slowest. But you know, once we got them to understand centeredness of strike, the golf ball obviously behaved better. Now, I like to build arguments for people. I don't argue, I just build an argument in that I'll show them that without an efficient strike at their speed, how much distance they lose. So for example, if somebody swings a driver, say 75 miles an hour, and it's inefficient, I'll take their driver, I'll swing at 75 miles an hour, and I'll hit it on the, you know, somewhere in the middle typically with effective impact alignments and say, okay, here's your 75 miles an hour, here's my 75 miles an hour. Why are there 40 yards difference? And this just goes to show the importance of just centeredness of strike rather than, you know, just trying to swing for speed, because speed is great, but it means nothing unless unless you hit it in the middle of the face and the face is organized, pointing where you want the golf ball to go with a path that makes sense.
Correct, yeah. I had a great opportunity in my golfing playing career and since to come across Peter Thompson. He was a great mentor for me. And he said in my last meeting before he passed, he said, Peter, he said, tell your son that golf's a game. It's a game of how near, not a game of how far. And of course, that came right on the back of Bryson DeChambeau and Rory and these guys all hitting 350-yard drives. But it's interesting, this last week, wherever you need a golf to be able to hit your iron shots close and hit the fairways, the long hitters, it still needs control. So squareness of contact, what you said there, it gives you whatever speed you swing at, you'll get your maximum distance. So then get the squareness to hit first, and then once you've got an ability to do that, then work on techniques that'll increase your speed. And really, the best way to increase speed is increase your hand speed. So if the orange whip's one thing, cracking the whip is another. And this is another great tool that I have. It has a variable clubhead speed. It's a clicker. And if I could tell you I've moved it up to 110 mile an hour, I won't. I'll move it down to about 90 mile an hour. And if I just try to pull this club through and try to hit it with my body, I'm just going to hit as fast as I can without breaking anything. I got very little chance of clicking it. But as soon as I decide I'm going to throw the club head at, if there was a ball there, I'm going to be above it, I'm not going to hit it. But now the trick now is as I swing back and throw, I'm going to throw down using more focus on using my hands. Let's see what difference there is. And that was so much less effort on my body, and yet I got more click or more speed at the bottom. So if you want speed, first of all, educate the hands to deliver on the right path so that you get that squareness of hit, that compression. And then if you want more speed again, basically focus on how you use your hands to release the club head end of the club so that it can get that extra power. So
you know, jumping in on that for you is when Ben Doyle was for those of you that don't know, he was the first authorized instructor of the golf machine. And Peter's very familiar with that, as am I. And he used to have this expression of shooting the marble out, getting, imagining as though there was a marble in the shaft and you could shoot it out the shaft. Now, if you drug or you pulled, the marble wouldn't shoot out the shaft. But if you had a marble, say it was just somewhere in your grip, and how would you get that marble to shoot out the shaft? You can see there's a reciprocating event that centers you. It's not something where we're dragging and slowing down what's happening in the club head. So Peter's got a training device that has some kind of a click associated with enough force. Well, that kind of feeling is something that you could, if you had an old club, you could literally put a ball bearing in it, go up to left arm parallel right here, and have that sense of how you shoot that marble to get it to rip down the shaft as best you can, because that sensation's huge and it does so many good things for dynamics of a swing that the coach therefore doesn't even have to tell you. It's like watching my little son play golf. I say as little as I can playing golf with him. Build a good grip, teach him how to walk into the ball, aim him a little bit, and then I'm very, very selective on what I say to him, because why add when you don't need to? And so, getting the marble to shoot down the shaft or a clicker or something like that, where somebody can feel like a pull doesn't make a click, a rake doesn't make a click, using your hands effectively, whoa, that makes it click. Oh, and it's way easier on your body. So massive benefits there.
Super. Yeah, no, basically, clubhead speed is only as valuable as you can make solid contact. And basically, it's so important to train your hands to develop that first. And you can train power with your pitching. It's interesting. You don't need to start with the driver. So if you just start with little shots and just add a little bit more speed. So I haven't got a long swing here, but I'm just going to add a little bit more speed. And so you get that better compression, get your confidence, and then add a little bit more length, and then a little bit more speed. So speed's of value only if you make solidness a hit. So both come through educated hands to start with.
Okay, truth.
Great.
Which leads us into truth number 8, the cause of ground force. And the ground force is a response to the hand force in the golf swing. So explain a little bit about what causes ground force, Guy.
Yeah, no, I love this one. I mean, so many people are getting wrapped up in ground force reaction. And there's some merits to getting with a coach that understands this stuff. But I'll tell you, so much of it, like I said, if we just were to say, okay, what was Peter just doing a moment ago? He had a shaft, and I used the example of a ball bearing in the shaft. And how do I get that ball bearing out? Well, to get that ball bearing out, there's a response you'd make to get that to shoot out. And that response is so natural once we understand what our goals are. A lot of people are trying to drag, and then there's really no force. So my point is, you all use ground forces. We use a ground force every time I take a step. If I was throwing a ball, I'd be using a ground force. I'd be using rotational, linear, vertical, all kinds of forces actually. So when you have educated hands and your intent is correct, you'll get the most force you can out of the ground. I mean, I'm using 182 pounds of ground force right now. All right. And so if I did this, if I lower myself really quickly, briefly the world didn't know I was there. Okay. And as soon as and you may be able to hear this, as I lower myself quickly, in that blink of an eye, I've disappeared from the earth until my feet touch the ground again. So to jump really high, you have to make yourself very light. That's a lowering phase. To make yourself very heavy, to jump, you push. Now, do you really think about making yourself light and heavy? No, you respond as an athlete. And so when you learn how to educate your hands, a lot of that stuff just happens for you. And the better and harder you use these, the more response you naturally will use. Now, there's some great products out there these days that will show you, in fact, where you are relative to your weight and your feet and your toes and your heels. And I don't, and I don't take away any from those, because I have them and I use them, because what people come to us, Peter and I, and they've literally taught themselves how to get too left too fast, or they've, done something where they stay back too long, or who knows what it is. And we create an argument to say, hey, if we learn how to do this more athletic, responsive event with good hands and good structure, look at how nice these reactions and these numbers and graphs look when these things work better.
Yes, sir. Yeah, it's the action reaction. There's a definite link between hands and feet. Okay, so if you want to swing the club and keep using the ground force to its maximum, you also want to use the rotational force in the golf swing, because you'll get so much more clubhead speed out of rotation than you ever will out of running sideways and doing a Happy Gilmore. Even though Happy Gilmore is a pretty good movie, the one shot in out of 10 or 20 that went down the fairway wouldn't make you a golfer. But when you swing clubhead last and handle first, what happens is the weight of that club and the arms go from the center over to the right side. So there's that dynamic weight is over here. So it will measure definitely more pressure. You're feeling that you're actually measuring the amount, the net weight over the right side is more. And then as you change direction, as you throw down, the harder you throw down, the more you'll feel that the feet push out of the ground. Whereas if I pull, then I go sliding a little bit sideways and I lose that ability to turn fast. So basically, it's the educated hands on moving that club on the right path, that the harder you throw on that path, the more you will feel the effect, and you'll be hitting against the ground. If we held you off the ground and you had no foundation, the hand arm action wouldn't be worth much. You'll just flop around. So you do need to be in balance. You need to have heavy feet. And a lot of people, they say to me, well, how do I get those heavy feet? How do I feel that? Well, I say, well, feel the weight behind your big toe. You'll find there's a pressure point just behind your big toe. Just behind your little toe is another one. And there's one in your heel. If you can keep those 3 points contacted with the ground for as long as you can in the golf swing, you'll build up a coil and a wind against the earth that'll allow you to make a spring-like backswing. And from that coiled backswing, as you throw down, the weight of that club pushing against it, you'll feel the ground also, you will push against the ground. And so the combination of throwing down, you see, Bubba Watson, Davis Love, Laura Davies, John Daly, Rory McIlroy, especially Bryson DeChambeau now, Tiger Woods, at the moment of impact says, well, how they're up on their toes. That's all a reaction. It's not they're not trying to do that. They're really hitting the ball hard. And the harder they hit, the more it causes the effect, the rotation of the body, and then the feeling of the ground. So the ground force, very important that you get that balance at address, and then you stay in your center, and then you can actively use the ground force to balance it all out, to balance out that faster hand action. So it's a chicken and the egg. It's the hands that really give you that ground force effectiveness.
Which leads us into the next truth, which is a precise and thorough action definition for the pivot is required for maximum control power and consistency to be achieved.
That's a big one.
Yeah, that's a big one. Peter, lead us into that one.
Right. Yeah. Well, in that last episode there, we talked about golf's a rotation. It's while there will be lateral force in the swing, the more you can use the rotation, the more efficient and the more consistent you're going to make the bottom of the swing. The club will find the same place. So if we look at the pivot, first of all, the setup. if you're just to set up and both hands were the same length and both arms were straight, then there's your body's position. But in golf, the backhand is lower than the front hand, and also the back arm ideally is bent, so it will fold better in the backswing. You don't want to have a straight right arm as a right-handed golfer. So from this position, as I do that, can you see what's happening to my body? It's kind of tilting. So while the head goes back, the hips go a little forward. And we like to use a drill called the doorway drill. So we put the ankle, if this is the door jam, we put the foot right in there, right up against the ankle, not the bulk of the foot, just the heel part. And as we bend, then we get set up kind of on this right side low. So now my body's in a position where this leg is kind of vertical looking front on. This one's on a tripod. From the setup, it's so important that you get the right posture bend. So we like people to start off here. Then when you get in a position, you bend from the hip socket, unlock the knees. Now, the body's in a position now that it can pivot. No good trying to pivot out of a different position. If I get even, then I got too much wobble. So when I'm set up in this manner, when I turn back, the hips are turning around the center. And as I do, if I can allow the hips to stay level, then I'll be in best balance. If my right hip goes up, then that affects the upper body, and also it affects the knee down below. So you want to see if you can keep your right knee in its stable addressed position for as long as possible. Some of us can turn more than others against that. If you've got a problem in your knee or your hip, you might have to let it go a little bit. But ideally, in the pivot and the backswing, you don't want to have your right hip going up and sideways. You want to turn. We like to say you're going to corkscrew into the ground. So that lower body winding up correctly and that right knee staying pretty stable allows the front knee to move out towards the left toe. It doesn't go out as far, but it goes in that direction. So this lower body pivot really keeps you centered, doesn't allow you to drift. And now I feel very anchored here and I feel solid here, and I'm coiled into the ground. So that's the backswing part for the pivot. Now the downswing part from there, when the club's over here somewhere, as the club head throws in this direction, it causes the shoulders to come up. So in the backswing, the shoulders go along with the hips, they go more level. There'll be certainly a little bit lowering because you're not standing up here, you're bent over. So your left shoulder will go slightly under, but it doesn't dip. So as it turns in balance, we say, the downswing, as I throw down towards the ball, that direction of throw with the hands causes the arms and the shoulders to move on a more incline, a more vertical downswing. And that pivot, once you understand it, you just let it happen in response to the correct hand action. But it's important that you don't get high with the right side going back. Otherwise, you then got to come back the other way. And in the process, a couple of things happen. Number one, you get a sore back. That puts a lot of strain on the back. Number two, you can't get the rotational swing that's most effective. You're going to finish up going more down the line. I just might like to hand over to Martin because I'm sure he's got some more to add on.
Yeah, no, for sure. I think, a lot of people that when they come see me and they do a golf school, the folks that struggle, they usually have their pelvis will glide away from the target. They really don't have a sense of rotation. Their pelvis has a sense of tilting without turning. And so a lot of times we may put an aim stick in beside their trail leg and put it in on an angle. And usually, I don't have a glove in my pocket right now, but if I take my glove off and put it in my pocket, you'll see what I mean. So if I put it in my right pocket and I set up over an imaginary golf ball right now. So you're looking at my hindquarters. In my backswing, look at where my glove goes. It doesn't go away from the target. It rotates fairly level and goes toward the target. So that sensation of my right pocket, and for the right-handed golfer, working, getting closer to the target, rather than a false idea of, a backswing, which is this lateral motion to the right for the right-handed golfer. So, a famous Australian guy used to say RPB, right pocket back, when he wanted to wind up a little deeper to hit a big drive, Greg Norman. So the sense was, a fairly level hip turn where that pocket would go toward the target, and that keeps you inside your feet rather than gliding on the outside of your feet.
Beautiful. Yeah, no, it's the pivot power. Well, the pivot first of all, you got to have a good understanding of how it's supposed to move. So you can drill the pivot independently, but ultimately, if you use your hands correctly, then the pivot basically supports that hand action. So when I use my hands properly, the body works properly. So when I swing this way or this way, as soon as it comes down this way, as I use my hands to release down and out, it causes that right shoulder to go down, left shoulder goes up, and I hit away from this foot. I don't transfer weight. The weight transfers at and through impact as a result of the release of the club, not because you try to physically shift your weight. The more you can hit away from your right foot in the downswing, the faster your hips can clear. If you go sideways, you get blocked, and that's when you get all sorts of chicken wing, and you also get some injuries to your lower body. So looking at it from this angle, it's the direction of the throw that makes the body really clear properly. So I don't have to try to turn my hips. I just have to allow the throw. And then the more I throw, the faster this comes up and out the road, the more compression I can put on that ball.
Excellent.
Okay. So, Chris, where are we now? That's quite a bit we've covered today.
All right, and I think the final truth we're discussing today is the address routine is an entrance point to a more consistent golf swing and game.
I mean, the number one thing, I don't let people write this when they come see me, but I ask them what they want. And I always, the caveat is you're not allowed to say consistency, because I know you want to be more consistent. But there's so much to the walk-in routine and how you organize yourself around a golf ball that lends to athletic ability to move the club to get the desired result you want. So the walk-in routine is huge in how you organize yourself around the golf ball. I think Jack Nicklaus said it was 90% of his golf swing before he even took the club back. So I can't even tell you enough about, I'm a stickler for the routine. I'm going to turn it over to Peter, but this is something that people go, oh yeah, okay, fine. But they really don't understand how to kind of take a look at the shot, walk into the shot, organize themselves over the golf ball with structure, have a waggle, and then start back, handle first, club head last. If people could really just get into that and practice that without even hitting a golf ball, their golf IQ, their ability to have centered strikes and have more fun compressing the ball would skyrocket.
Correctly. Yeah, the routine, just to hammer that point home, I know that Graham and Henry Bolton and Jason Goldsmith, who worked with using the focus band with Jason Day and Justin Rose, 90% of their work was using the focus band to just get them to be in a calm state and get their address routine right. You might have noticed Jason Day, when he was on the top of his game, #1 in the world, they quite often focus the camera on his eyes from behind the ball, and he'd have his eyes flickering. And that was part of his process to get himself focused on the target rather than getting distracted by what's around. So the address routine is a major part. If you can do it consistently from start to finish, not just on the one hole, but every hole, you're going to build a lot more consistent golf game. And the other thing is, with a good address routine, while it takes quite a lot of conscious effort to learn it, the more you drill it, the more automatic it becomes, and then you can learn to play golf in a more autonomous way, so you can play golf out of your mind. Your address routine is your entrance point to stopping talking and worrying about what's around you, to actually playing your shot. And it has a start, a change, and a stop. And when you're out of it, you can go on and talk with your friends. But your address routine is your own special place that will allow you to get in the zone to make the best shot you can. So, do you want to go through and show an?
Yeah, Peter, let me hit a shot. Let me hit a shot, and you can watch my routine. I've got a 6-iron. I've got 185 yards. It's no wind. Okay, I've chosen my club. I'm ready to go. I always like to stand behind my golf ball and sight my target line. Now watch my routine as I walk in. I take a look at my target. I aim the loft, put my sweet spot behind the golf ball. It's not resting on the ground. And from there, I'm going to set my lead foot for ball location, drop my trail foot back for stance width. And I have my waggle. My waggle is critical. I take one more look, handle first, club head last, and send it. And then I always try to do my little club head spin right there. So I carried that ball 170, so a little bit short, but it was a nice strike down my target line. So that is my routine every single time I hit a shot. And it's from the moment I take a step, that's when I stop talking about hockey or jokes or politics or anything. That's the only time that I really kind of am very, very involved in the couple of seconds it takes to play great golf and those cumulative seconds that make up a great round.
Very good. Yeah, I think basically there are a couple of main points in the address routine that we all should embrace. Number one is, if I'm hitting a golf ball towards the camera, no good just walking to the side. The first place you should always start is behind the ball, a couple of yards back. Put the ball in the middle between you and your target. Just feel grounded and taking 1 or 2 deep breaths. Look at the ball, look up at the target, and ask yourself the question, what would a good shot look like? So you just kind of now you get engaged with what I want to do here. So if you can just get yourself, you mightn't visualize it, but you just say, well, I want it to go up there in the air and whatever. But you get that idea of, you make a kind of a plan of what you're going to do. So then when you walk to the side, I think it's so important. If you've got a little intermediate target here that you can aim that club face at. So when you take that grip, the club face is organized to the ball's target. And it's always, I think, very valuable. I'll move over now a bit. So it's always, to me, very valuable that you start with the club opposite the center of your hips. You don't want it up here, it's too far away from you. And if you put it in the middle, when you move off center, you'll get the engagement of your hips will work together with your hands. So now if I balance, a lot of people just come in here and do this, but I like to see people start in balance on their trail foot and have their arms all set, and then watch the club and just bend from the hip and unlock your knee. You'll get a consistent posture, and you get a consistent angle between arm and shaft and arm and body. And whether you're using a wedge or a driver, if you have that little routine of getting balanced over the ball in good posture, it makes it so much easier then to make that swing a rotary swing and to stay in balance. Okay. So any more to add to that, Martin, or do you think that's...
No, I think it's great. I think that a lot of people will, George Newton, when I was a kid, we would strike shots, and a big thing is, can we relax? And you see that club twirl right there. Well, tomorrow I start a golf school. No, Wednesday I start a golf school in Phoenix with a bunch of students. You know how we're going to start? We're going to start by learning how to do this. I know that sounds ridiculous, but I tell you what, a lot of great shots end up like this. And so for most people, they never really learn how to let the club work around them, exhaust themselves in a finish, relax into their lead foot up in their trail toe, and spin the club and let their arms swing. And when you watch a really nice player who's hit a great shot, that's almost always the exclamation point of a great shot. So sometimes starting with the end in mind is a way to get to where you want to go. So I've never done this before. I've talked about, and I've worked on finish for 35 years coaching golf, but this is how I'm going to start. Simply doing this. Everybody's learned how to spin the club and grab it before it wraps their knuckles, because every shot I hit that's really, really pleasing, my finishing form looks something like this. And it's a great shot. I'm in balance. The ball is going where I want it to go. Shots, not so much. I'm a little bit out of balance. Maybe my hands come off the club. So you have to train and anticipate the goodness rather than expect something that is unsavory. So, we're going to train that in, Peter.
Magic. I love it. Got to look like a tour pro that's hit a great shot to the 18th green. And the other one thing I'd like to add to that, Martin, you should smile as well. You got to smile when you do that.
That's right.
It's a lot of fun.
Smile.
Right.
Perfect.
Okay, we have a couple of questions from our audience here. So it's from Paul Maloney. Does a slower swing speed need less forward lean than faster speed to get more height? And how much is enough?
So on that note, if you have, there is some valid data that shows that, an angle of attack for slower swing speeds should be a little bit more level. But here's what I'd say to you. And so obviously, less angle of attack would be a mild reduction in shaft lean. That said, you need to be careful, because to launch the ball very effectively, you're kind of riding the fence a bit, because if you don't have forward shaft lean, you may be hitting a little bit too much of the grass behind the golf ball. You need a subtle descending attack, and it's not much. 4 degrees, 5 degrees is plenty, but you need to be able to avoid the material behind the golf ball. To do that, we need some shaft lean. Now, do we want to have excessive shaft lean when you have a slow swing speed? 7, 8, 9 degrees, a handle way ahead? No, because you're not strong enough. Your swing speed's not high enough to make the ball respond and be sort of functional. I taught a tour player years ago. He's still on tour, Nick Taylor. He's a nice player. He just finished 20th in Riviera. He's won twice. The first lesson I gave him in 2012 was that he had too much shaft lean, believe it or not. He launched the ball too low for his swing speed. So we worked on getting the golf ball, the flight up. He tended to be a little bit too narrow. He didn't have enough width. He didn't have enough push. And once he learned how to push and rotate, guess what? The ball went higher. The numbers that we measure with, like a Foresight or a TrackMan, they were more in line with what the best players in the world do. So there is a relationship with speed and shaft lean, but you still need some, even if you're slow, because you don't want to risk touching the ground before you touch the ball.
Correct, yeah. Very good answer there, Martin. Any other questions, Chris?
Yes, there are. I'll just bring up. Okay, Martin, Peter. As far as creating speed with your hands and the water flicking concept, I see a lot of top ball strikes with a ton of flexion in the lead wrist and extension in the trail wrist. Way post impact, which does not look like they are trying to flick water off them or create speed in their hand, even though they are. Can you elaborate? Thanks.
That's a pretty long question. I'm not that smart, so I missed you after the first sentence,
Yes.
maybe. So were you talking about flexion in the lead hand, extension in the trail hand, or the opposite post impact?
You might wait for an answer on that.
Yeah. Yeah, look, that's
Okay, so Craig, I know Craig. So
Flexion in the lead hand.
sure. So here's what I'd say, Craig. I mean, we're talking to an audience of golfers that typically isn't you, right? So I actually know this gentleman, good striker, good player, frustrated, very good golfer, like many very good golfers who would like to be even better golfers. If you see a good golfer that has this ability, where the lead wrist bends back quite a bit post impact, and yet they have great low point control and great control of the face vector where the face is pointing at impact, fantastic. Should I take a new golfer and teach them how to have this ability in their motion? No, because they need to learn how to have a follow through first before they have a finish. Now, in a follow through, both arms are going to be straight. Typically, you're going to see some behavior where, the lead wrist is going to be ulnar deviated. The trail wrist is going to be coming out of its extension, sort of in its flat mode. But when you look at, say, a Freddie Couples, who might look very cuppy post impact, a lot of that has to do with their choice and how they grip the golf club, right? So he's got a very, very strong grip. He's very extended at the top. In post impact, there's a lot of throw, right, which is fantastic. And that kind of behavior works for him. Now, the audience we're talking to, for the most part, are people that have a hard time hitting the sweet spot, have a hard time touching the ball in the right place and brushing the ground after impact. So the model is kind of like, we're not going to say that there aren't people, outliers, that do beautiful things in golf. Of course they do. And of course you can measure, a variety of degrees of flexion and extension in wrists and hands. But as a coach, we tend to stay down, hey, this is a road we're going to go down. We may take little deviations in that road, but for the most part, these kind of things are for extra credit if the person deserves to even go down that path. So, Peter, would you like to address any of that?
I'll just say that if you can teach, as a golfer, starting with the short game, if you want control, you're not going to get anywhere near as much control initially doing that as you are doing this. And by getting consistent control of the club face and the compression on the ball, you'll be a lot more under control around the green for sure. And with your iron play coming into the green. Now with the driver, okay, then you're going for a power. You got the ball off the front foot. It's a little different. You want the similar, but it'll behave slightly different because the club head's traveling much faster than you are, and it's going to break down the shaft, the left arm, or the left wrist, I should say. But for control, if you want control of the golf ball, you want to hit your iron shots close. And that's what Peter Thompson said. It's a game of how near, not how far. If you hit your iron shots close, you'll make better scores more often, and you'll find the fairway with your driver more often too. So you won't lose as many balls. As you go into that extra distance thing, you might do it, but you might be like Rory and Bryson DeChambeau this last week, and you'll miss the cut. So
and so here's what I'd say. I'd say get really good at this kind of stuff. Get really good at it. Stingy little punch shots. Understanding how to do this right way before you try to do this kind of behavior. So there's always a walk before you can run, and there's more than one way to make a golf ball's trajectory behave a certain way. But again, you can play Twinkle Twinkle Had a Little Star on a violin, and then you can play Sergei Rachmaninoff, right? Well, for the most part, we're reaching out to most people that are playing Twinkle Twinkle, trying to work their way into stronger, more tricky applications.
Excellent. Yeah, no, exactly. It's build the impact zone where you get compression first, add speed as you can, and enjoy, as we say, enjoy the hit, enjoy that compression, and that's you're on the way to playing and lower and having lower scores.
Absolutely. Do we have time for one more question?
That's all we have there so far. Craig says, understood. Thank you very much, gents.
Thank you, Craig. Great question.
Yeah, so very good. So did you guys want to summarize?
Well, basically, there are more truths. We haven't. There are still quite a few other. I shouldn't say there's a lot of untruths out there, probably that need to be looked at somewhere along, and maybe in the next segment. What do you think, Martin?
Oh no, for sure, absolutely, and I'd be happy to. I think that I'd rather do in our next show. Let's do kind of a faults and fixes. I will send you, Peter, my like top 5 things that I see from. Excellent. I'll send you 2 things I see from my mini tour players, and I'll send you 3 things I see from my weekend warriors that want to break 90 and maybe even break 80. How about that?
That sounds fantastic. Yeah, getting those fixes is pretty important if you're going to enjoy the game for a lifetime.
Yes. Yeah. So we'll do that next show. Little faults and fixes. Have a little fun with that, and I think you'll see how it kind of relates back to just basically good routine, good structure, understanding where the weight of the club is. For those of you watching still on, thank you for watching. So many people take things lightly, like they don't have precision in their grip. I'm going to be facing 14 students on Wednesday. I can promise you 10 of them, their grips will make me kind of bite my lip a little bit, but I will smile and I will work on them a little. And you'll say, well, if their grip is bad, why don't you just work with it? Because I want them to play really well. I want them to have articulating hands that work nicely. I want them to be able to get the sweet spot on the ball well. And sometimes when I see hands that are all over the place, the compensations required are really, really tricky. And yet everybody wants distance and consistency. So as a coach, I'm not nice. I mean, I'm friendly and I joke, but I challenge people to be better. And then I get you for 3 days. And in 3 days, guess what? You're sequestered. You can make positive improvements in a 3-day camp. Now, what Peter does, you can see him in person, or you can get into his programming, which is probably the most detailed, specific, step-by-step golf by numbers I have ever seen. So if you follow the program, you'll be surprised. It's so detailed that if you just follow the system nicely, you'll look like a golfer. You'll have a path that delivers the club like a golfer, not some mysterious thing like that you do 1 in 15 shots. So I would suggest you'd spend some time looking at Peter's stuff.
Oh, well, thanks, Martin. It's basically, there's nothing more senior than actually understanding what you're doing before, during, and after you've done it. And I think that's where our Master Coaching Academy, we've really got some very thorough programs in there for the different students. But the Quick Start Beginning Golfer program is an ideal place to actually get those basics, as you said, step by step. And once you get the pieces together, boy, you can make a great looking picture. And
you know what, Peter? I can guarantee you can be a master violinist in 2 hours. Guarantee it. If somebody says that to you, run. Okay. But if somebody says to you, hey, if you work the steps properly and mindfully, over time, you can really earn the ability to become a very, very competent ball striker and have fun playing the game. And Peter's been a mentor to me over the years. He's helped me become a pretty good coach. Thank you, Peter. And I've used a lot of his stuff every single day on the lesson tee to a lot of success in my life. So I'm very, very grateful to you, bud. That's why I like doing these with you. So guys, I'm going to have to run. But let's kind of wrap it up, if you don't mind, Chris.
Yes, sir. Well, thanks very much anyway, Martin. That was I really appreciate you. You're a great student, a student of golf and a student of life. And keep on keeping on, buddy.
You know it.
Yes.
Thanks very much, Martin. And thanks, Peter. Fantastic session. And I hope everyone in our audience got something from it. There was a final truth, and that is the drills build the skills. So,
Yeah,
if
there
you
you
want
go.
to be very skillful at something, you've got to really drill it in many times until it becomes automated without thinking.
So where do they go to get all this stuff, Chris?
So I've just posted in the chat box to get Peter and Martin's programs and schools. Yeah, so there's a couple of websites you can just have to click on them. Give Peter's program a go. I've been on Peter's program for quite some time. I've taught it for probably about 26 years, all around the world, in Switzerland, US, and here in Brisbane, Australia. And it's fantastic. People have a pathway to follow. And as Martin said earlier, they start looking like a golfer and not like a gopher. So,
Exactly. Right, yeah, right out of Caddyshack. Yeah. Beautiful. Thanks very much, gentlemen.
Thank you, guys. We'll see you next month.
okay, see you guys.
Have a great school. Cheers.
Bye-bye.